Okay, so I'm going to talk about what happened in Alton Towers. The- Um, when I was in Alton Towers, I went to different rides, such as the Runaway Mine Train and the River Rapids, which was the water ride, and I went to various others. Um, in the afternoon, I went to one particular place which I was not familiar. That was the dungeons. Anyway, when I went to the dungeons, I had to pay for it. Um, so basically, it costs money per person, and people had to stand in a queue. Anyway, when we went inside, when we were waiting to get in, there was one person, a man in a dress, particular costume. Uh, he was there and he offered to take the participants a photo, a family a photo. Anyway, after some minutes, we got in, and inside it was quite dark and mysterious, and we supposedly went into a mock courtroom or something where there was like a judge or something, a woman in a medieval costume as a judge. Anyway, so we were she gave hand gestures for us to step forward, and during that trial, if a person is innocent, they are considered to be hung. That's what happened in the Middle Ages. It was that the atmosphere was supposed to look like that. Anyway, there was one. She selected two participants for the accused. First, she that woman in the medieval costume selected one, a man, and and that person who was the accused, he was accused of indecent exposure to a woman in the medieval ages. I mean, it was a mock courtroom, it's not real. Anyway, I can't exactly remember whether if he was convicted innocent or guilty, I'm not sure. The person had to mention his name. I mean, the accused had to mention his name and the place where he was from. Like it was somewhere around in England. Anyway, at least I hold on, and there was another person who was also in the accused in the mock court room. A boy was selected, and he mentioned his name, and he said he was from Pakistan. Anyway, the judge, wearing the medieval costume, uh, she dismissed the fact that he was from Pakistan, since he was currently in the UK, and she, in her when she supposedly looked in her papers, she mentioned that he was a Spanish spy, working for the people in Spain and spying on the British government or something. Anyway, I think during that mock trial, she mentioned about a phrase which was like the accused will be hung dry or something. I'm not sure exactly. Anyway, after that, the court trial, we went into another room, and there was a man in a medieval costume, and I saw there was a cage that was for the accused, and it turned out when a person was selected for the accused to be locked in that cage, that was the accused for the accused years ago in the medievals, and it turned out that I was selected, and he selected me because of my supposedly haircut like Oliver Cromwell or something. Anyway, I was selected to be in that cage for the accused. Anyway, and after that, another person, a man, was selected to sit by, sit in the chair that was for the accused next to where I was in the cage. Anyway, it was kind of uncomfortable, but anyway, it wasn't real. I don't exactly remember what exactly happened, but he was asking questions to that man next to me about, like, what was he doing, and what was he up to during the period of Oliver Cromwell and all that, and I think he showed things like a spoon or something, a weapon. I don't exactly remember. Anyway, he interrogated him, and after that, the people were left to go, and it turned out that I was the last one. So he interrogated me about Oliver Cromwell. He asked, "Where is he?" And when I hesitated, the person in the medieval costume, yelled louder, a second time, "Where is he?" And I said, "To the right." In other words, like to the right side of the building. Anyway, and after that, I was released, and we went into another room, and a person, a man, asked me, "Are you the last one?" And I said yes, and he said, "Take a seat." Anyway, we were sitting in another room. I was sitting in the middle bench, not the front bench, and during that process, I don't exactly remember what exactly happened, but it turned out that the guilty, that the person who was guilty, like whether if it was for Oliver Cromwell, would get something like an effect. Anyway, when I felt a bit of effect, I felt a bit of noise, like a bit of air or something while I was sitting there, and during that process, after that we went into a boat, and there it showed what they did, like in the medieval times of when Oliver Cromwell was there. Like when I saw there were people torturing the accused, beating them, whipping them, mutilating them, stabbing them, slashing them, and executing them in the worst brutal possible ways. That's what happened. I guess what happened. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's what I saw in the screenings while we were going on that boat ride. It was very brutal what they showed, but that's what they did in the medieval times. And after those years, after the medieval periods, at the present time, things have changed recently. Like they don't whip people, they don't slash people, they don't behead people like what they did in the medieval times in the Western countries. The thing that exists in the Western countries would be life sentence and the death penalty in the US. That's what's currently happening. During the medieval times, not only people who did brutal things were executed or were accused, there were some innocent people who were tortured and executed in those days, which has little to do with the dungeons which I saw exactly. Anyway, however, during the present time, although in the Western countries, those medieval acts of torture, although they don't do it in the Western countries, in various other countries, such as Iran, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, those medieval acts, such as whipping, caning, flogging, they do that. But I guess I'm getting a bit off topic. Anyway, as I said, during the medieval times, people who were accused were whipped, flogged, or executed, whereas in the present time, although innocent people don't get those kind of convictions, they are sentenced to almost a life sentence. And examples who are sentenced would be such would be journalists and there were and people who were considered heroes like Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, and so on. Anyway, um, back to the dungeons. While I was going through the boat ride, we went. A lady in a medieval costume approached me and the rest of the people, and we were asked to go into another room. And in that other room, we were sitting down, and the woman in the medieval costume mentioned things such as the Black Plague, and a person was selected. There was a lady was selected, and she asked what her name was, and she mentioned a fake name that was Queen Elizabeth. I mean, that sounded a bit laughable. I mean, would anybody believe a person who is Queen Elizabeth if she doesn't look like Queen Elizabeth and if she doesn't have a crown on her head? Anyway, she was selected, and throughout the process I saw things like something happened, like I felt a bit of water or something. I'm not exactly sure. And throughout the process in that room, the woman in the medieval costume mentioned that you all got the Black Plague or something. And during that process, she went into to see a patient, a deceased patient that supposedly got the plague, and I saw things like there were intestines, lungs, the heart ripped off, you name it. It was kind of uncomfortable to watch, but it wasn't real. Anyway, and throughout that time, during that process, when people supposedly caught the plague, the woman mentioned that leeches were to be added on those who had the plague, which was in a way rings true, because during the medieval times when people got the plague, they were infected and various treatments were involved, like they had to have leeches upon them to see if it has an effect dealing with the plague. Quite brutal. And during the Black Plague, they did kind of brutal things, like I don't exactly remember. I have to look what happened during the Black Plague. But during that time, so the Black Plague, when a large amount of people in those days in various countries got the Black Plague, it was so bad that the population of in Europe and in the UK decreased significantly and had the highest amounts of deaths. And that was like the first time in decades during the medieval times that the population decreased as a result. Anyway, in the dungeons, that was probably the last time, not really the last time, we went into another room, which was the last one. And there was a man wearing that costume, and we were waiting, and something happened, like everything turned into darkness, and after that a person appeared, like there was a witch, a person dressed as a witch in the last room, and he mentioned about that witch. I don't exactly remember what happened in the last room, but that's what I saw. Anyway, after that we went out of the room. What have I thought about this dungeons experience? Well, I didn't quite enjoy it that much, since it showed various brutal things, like when I saw in the boat, like whippings, floggings, beheadings. I mean, they were not real, they were acting. And another thing is, I was selected to be Cromwell's supposedly associates, and alleged loyalty to Oliver Cromwell as a result. Would I want to go on the dungeons again? I suppose not. Unless if it's to do with like a Scarefest event, if I were to go again. But I think I'm done with going to Scarefest, since I went there many times. What have I thought about this ride? This process in the dungeon. I probably wouldn't recommend very young children going in it unless they're unless they're thrilled for something, or thrilled for something scary, and if they are interested in seeing what was it like, what was England like during the medieval times. And it's not for the faint heart. That's what I have to say. That's what I have to say about the dungeons. Like, it's not for everybody, and that's what I have to say. And it's fine if you're a teenager. Anyway, that's what I have to say about the dungeons. Peace out. See you.